다들인데, 조지 남다, 시야는 20대.
Today is the fourth day of our teachings on the life of Vatisha. It's our last day, so I'd like to welcome all of the Dharma friends, male and female, all of the Khenpos, masters, tulkus, and so forth, all the monks and nuns, and all the faithful people who are coming here. I hope you are well. Now, as I described yesterday, Atisha went to the Toding Monastery in Nari. And after that, Lama Chanchu explained, the King Chanchu explained to him how the Dharma had been established in Tibet, how long Dharma had persecuted Buddhism. And how Chanchu Yeshe had tried his best to reestablish the teachings, but because of wrong views and wrong conduct, there's so much wrong views and conduct that and so he explained all the problems and he wept as he explained this to Atisha, explaining the terrible situation. And so the main point that he explained to Atisha is that instead of teaching the difficult teachings on Dharma and teaching the most profound, most amazing Dharma teachings, please teach the Dharma of cause and effect. And this really pleased the teacher greatly. Because among all the profound Dharmas, the only profound Dharma is cause and effect. Instead of seeing the face of the Yudam deity, it's better to gain stable conviction of karma, cause, and effect. And so in India, for once there was a yogi who practiced Yamataka who saw his deity's face. And because he'd seen the Yudam deity's face, he thought that these wouldn't have any problems or faults. And so he used the common articles of the Sangha in any which way. And because he was actually born as a hungry ghost, and the shape of his body was actually the shape of Yamantaka. And so it's said that he took that story. And so he told many other such stories. And so Atisha did as Chanchu suggested. He taught the Tibetans primarily the karma, cause, and effect. And at that time, even people started to call Atisha from the Guru, karma, cause, and effect. And so, but even that very name itself was actually extremely beneficial to the teachings. So there's this is the one story. Likewise, when Rajan Shapu, who realized how great a Lama Atisha was, had been in India, and he spent 1 year following him in Toding. And he encouraged everyone to take as much Dharma as he could. So Atisha only has 1 year to stay, to get all the teachings he can. Likewise, the Venerable Hatsun Chanchu offered a lot of gold and said, in this land of Tibet, there are many people with wrong views. They have the conceptions and have not met authentic spiritual features. And they pretend to know things even though they do not, and they make up a lot of falsehoods. And so they disagree with each other, they debate each other. And they make up their own ideas about the ideas, and much of what they teach does not accord with the Dharma. And so for that reason, Chanchu asked Atisha several questions, 2 questions about the common vehicles, 2 about the transcendences, and 3 about the Vajrayana. And so the main point is that they taught the entire teachings of the Buddha in a few words and related to the Guru's own practice. So so this is the type of treatise that Chanchu was to do. And the second point was for him to teach the fifth instructions in the Guhya Samaja Tantra by the Buddha Dhyana. And so Chanchu asked him to write a sadhana with Avalokiteshvara as the main deity of the mandala. So what an addition said to that is that there is already in Tibetan, you've already translated the Nagarjuna's. Everything you said to me is very good. And so Nagarjuna, the string of jewels written by Nagarjuna is already in Tibetan. That is enough. You won't find anything better than that. And like there's also the Samantabhadra sadhana called the All Good sadhana. But in any case, later, in order to not disappoint Chanchu, he wrote the well-known treatise, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Now, the Lamp for the Path is only 67 stanzas long. As Tsongkhapa says, and so it's like he decided they did not need to actually refute all of the wrong views and wrong actions. It's like by teaching this, that it actually didn't forcefully or directly block the false dharmas. They would naturally came to a stop. Now, Atisha taught the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, but later, if there hadn't been someone like Geshe Drongpa Trungpa who appeared later, then it would have become something like Kamalashila stages of meditation, something that's only studied in the philosophical schools, in the monasteries. It wouldn't have been very beneficial. And so Geshe Drongpa meditated on the meaning of the Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment. He developed in his being, he incorporated his being and practiced it, so that he really developed real living teachings on the Lamp for the Path that hadn't lost any of their flavor. And so when someone asked Drongpa, what they said was, it'd be really good to have a commentary on the Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment, they asked. And what Drongpa replied was that there's no commentary on the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment in words. I am a student of the actual author of the Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment, so I've received that teaching directly from him myself. And so I myself am the commentary on that. And so what this means is that a world commentary in words doesn't fit. He said, I'm the commentary in actuality. If you look at my actions and my example, and so this is, you don't need to rely on any commentary in words. And then, when he continues speaking about Atisha's life story, before Atisha had gone to Tibet, Naksul Sulasao had made the oath to the elder bhikshus from Vikramshila that after 3 years, he definitely would bring Atisha back to India. This is what he said, right? So when the 3 years were coming to a close, there's nothing else that Naksul could do but to remind Atisha, please return to India. And Atisha also accepted. And so Atisha and his retinue that went to the region of Purang. Now, at that time, when he was in Purang, this is when Drongpa met. Atisha, as I mentioned the other day. While Atisha was in India, Tara had prophesied that if he went to Tibet, he would benefit a householder. So who was that householder? It was Atisha's most famous student, Drontenpa Gyalwai Chungne. Now, after Atisha had gone to Purang, Atisha was always looking for who would fulfill Tara's prophecy, but as he was traveling through Tibet, he never met any special superior householder. And so for that reason, so he was always thinking that he hadn't met the householder that Tara had prophesied, and he felt a bit of regret about this. So when he arrived in Purang, Tara once again prophesied, a great lay practitioner will soon arrive. And so Atisha waited for that lay practitioner every day. He was thinking this every day, and he was waiting for him. Now at that time, where was Dromtimpa? Originally, Dromtimpa was born in the area of Dongchung in Kham, but later he moved to the area of Kham. Now, why he was in Kham? You heard of that this Atisha had gone to the area of Ngari, who was really learned, venerable, and good. When he heard about his fame, that he gradually traveled from Kham all the way up to Ngari. Now, when he arrived in Purang, Atisha had been, when he asked where Atisha's residence was. And at that time, Atisha had gone to a sponsor's home and was not at his residence. So the people in Ashoka and Atisha's residence asked Chuntaba and said, "Oh, please wait a little while. Atisha will certainly come back soon." And the Drompa said, "No, that's not okay. The spiritual friend is something that you need to meet quickly. You can't even wait a single instant," he said. And so he immediately went off to go where, in the direction of the house where Atisha's sponsor lived. Now, what's most amazing about that is that time, Atisha, at that same time, had just left the sponsor's house to return. And he and Dromtimpa was coming through. They met each other on the way in a narrow street. Dromtimpa and Atisha basically ran into each other. And as soon as Dromtimpa saw Atisha, he immediately did full prostration. And so he did full prostration, and Atisha was overjoyed. He placed his head on Dromtimpa's head, and he recited many auspicious prayers in Sanskrit. This is like the very auspicious connections in the very beginning. Dromtimpa, of course, had never been to India, but he did know Sanskrit, and he knew it well. And so for that reason, Atisha had no difficulty at all in making conversation. And they were able to speak with each other. And from the very evening when the two of them met, then Atisha and Dromtimpa stayed in a single bedroom. Now, generally, Atisha was a monk and Dromtimpa was a layperson. And so monks and layperson there is discussion that householders and lay people are not allowed to stay in the same room. But because Atisha had gone forth in the Mahasangika school, and according to the Mahasangika school, it was permissible for them to stay in the same house if there were a curtain hung between the two of them. And so then it would be okay for the householder and the monastic to stay in the same room, and there would not be any offense in doing so. Now, not so the translator was still planning to continue bringing Atisha back to India, but at that time, while they're going to India, they had to go through Nepal. So the plan was to travel through Nepal, but at that time, what happened is that a war broke out in Nepal, and they were unable to continue through on the path. And so they returned, and for the time, they had no choice but to return to stay in Tet for a while. And they're planning that after the war came to an end, they would continue on to India. So now at that time, Naso the translator was really worried because in the past he'd made an oath. After 3 years, he would bring Atisha back. And he had made that promise, and because he'd made that promise, he was thinking, I can't keep that promise. And so he was very, very worried about this. But Atisha reassured him, you don't need to worry about this. And the reason for this is not a question that you didn't try. You tried your best, but because the situation didn't work out the way you wished, and so you don't need to worry. We need to write a letter about the situation and send it to India, describe the situation. And so for that reason, Atisha wrote a letter explaining the situation, the reason why they were unable to come back to India right away. He also included a copy of a manuscript of The Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment that he'd written while in Tibet, and he sent those along with some gold down to India. And when the letter arrived in India, and in particular when the manuscript for The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, many Panditas gathered and they discussed this Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So there's a lot of discussion about that, but we don't have time to speak about all of that right now. Now, actually, there are many people thought that thought Atisha should not return to India, but should stay in Tibet instead. But no one was able to ask him and say, please stay. And the reason is Nakso Losao and the others had made such a strong oath that they couldn't go against it. But Trungpa Gyaltsab had the idea if he only could stay in Tibet. But he also was someone who was able to think about things. He was quite skillful. He was one who could come up with good ideas. And so he did. So he wasn't able. He wasn't able to ask Atisha directly not to return to it, but instead he used like different methods, and he spoke about how there are such and such monasteries in the region, central Tibet. There are this many masjids. And when he spoke about all of this, then Atisha, when he heard this, he was really pleased. He said, "Oh, these days in India, there aren't as many monastics in India as there are in Tibet. This is a really rare situation. If it would please them, if I were to go to central Tibet, then I'll think about traveling to central Tibet. The reason is that I've made the commitment that in this lifetime, I shall do whatever the Sangha directs me to do. I will not go against that. I will do whatever the Sangha directs me to do." And once Trungpa heard this, he understood the situation, and he immediately sent a letter to all the important people and lamas in central Tibet, encouraging them to invite Atisha to central Tibet. Now, in that letter, what he wrote was that he wrote all the names of all the important people in central Tibet, and the great gurus, such as Bodhidharma, Loten Shirap, and so forth. And so when they got the letter, then all of these important people and gurus in central Tibet gathered and had a discussion about how they would about how they would bring Atisha to central Tibet. But there was one important lama in central Tibet whom they'd forgotten. Trungpa had forgotten to write in his letter. His name was Kutan. And so there are three different people. They made this Ngo, Kutung, and Tom were the three most important. But his name was not put in Atisha's name. And he said and so I don't know if they forgot to put it or intentionally, but in any case, he didn't write down Kutun's name. So when they had they didn't invite Kutun to the meeting. Kutun at that time was like the greatest, the largest, most important person lama in central Tibet. He was the biggest lama there, and so Kutun was a little bit unhappy about that. I said, if you're going to ignore me like this, and you didn't even invite me to the meeting, you've really ignored me. So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to invite Atisha first. And so he led some people and immediately set off on horseback towards Nadi. Now, shortly afterward, those important people in Lama's Central had also, soon after he left, they also uh, set out on the road on the way to Ngari to invite Atisha. Now, at that time, Atisha and his retinue, everyone came to, they're coming to close to central, the people from central Tibet. They're getting close to central Tibet, and the great lamas and people from Tibet came on horseback, and they were wearing these oh, coats and hats. The hats were these like that, like the hats that you see with the Gesar always wears, the big hats. And when they're riding on a horse, they also had like these particular cloaks, and they're riding a horse, and they're like kind of really intimidating. And they're so intimidating that the teacher was from India, and he'd never seen such a like sight and all those robes and all this stuff. He's like, oh, these are ghosts. They're like the Tibetan ghosts are coming, and he immediately covered his head with his dharma robe. And so the Tibetan guru saw that the Atisha had been terrified. And they had saw that they changed their robes, and they put on yellow dharma robes properly. And then they went in the proper way to go. So they said, so only then when they did that was Atisha a little bit comforted. And at that time, Atisha said, so the living conditions and robes of the Tibetan Sangha are better, especially the robes are really nice. Indian pictures don't have robes that are that nice. Now at that time, there are so many great people from Central Tibet who are inviting so many people to the views. Now, Kutun is actually quite irate because Dronten had ignored him. So Kutun said, using that letter you sent to the important people, why didn't you write my name? Why didn't you write my name, he said. When Dronten was asked that question so unexpectedly, he didn't expect it. And he didn't know how to reply. And he said, and what he said is, I put your name in there because I wrote Ngotlo Tao, etc. So I wrote etc., right? So that etc. includes you, doesn't it? And when he heard that, then Kutun Sudha Yundren became even more irate about that. He bellowed, isn't it right to include such an important person as me in an etc.? You didn't say the name, you didn't say my name, you put me in the word, include me in an etc. And from then on, then Kutun kind of disliked Dromtrip. He had a bit of a grudge against him. And so there was a friction between the two of them. And then they're heading towards Tsang, and then they're going Tsang and then to the central province of Fu. In any case, when he was 66 years old in 1047, Atisha reached central Tibet and arrived at Sanye. At that time, the Sanye was a really important Dharma center in Tibet. There's an oral story that when Atisha was given a tour of Sanye and saw the main statue of the Mahabodhi, he praised it by saying, this is really, really, it's just like the statue of the Mahabodhi in Bodh Gaya. And so at that time, Atisha spent some time, a certain period of time in Samye, and many people heard that scholars had heard that he had been staying there, and so they wanted to receive Dharma teachings while he was there. At that time, Drontrip thought to himself that it would be necessary to establish he needed a nice place for Atisha to stay, a place where he could stay for a long time. Now, there are four choices. So one of these was the Yarlung region where Kutun lived. The second was the area of Sanye. And the third was the area of Ngotlo Tawa. And the fourth was the area of Nyetang. And among of these, the best of the areas was Nyetang, he thought. And so the leader of Nyetang was Bangjun. And so Dronten wrote a letter to him and said, your region of Nyetang where you stay has good land, The weather is also nice. And so it's a very good place for Atisha. He came from India, and with the weather's too cold, it's difficult for him. So the place where Atisha should stay, it would be best for him to stay in your place. And so mustn't bring Atisha to live in Yetang. When Bangtan received the letter, he saw that immediately saw that what Zhang Tuba had written was actually was the case. And he said this time Atisha must not go anywhere else. We must all take the responsibility and bring Atisha to Nietang. And so he made this announcement. Now it's probably that Kutun probably understood this, but he didn't realize that Kutun had in secret said to Atisha, if you stay with some of the more inferior person like Bang Chen or whatever, you won't have a good place and you won't get what you need to have the resources for your living. And particularly, it won't be beneficial to many people. If I was someone like me were to serve you, I'd be able to provide you with everything that you need. I have the resources and facilities, I can do everything. In addition, the region of Yalong is the place where many great kings of Tibet lived. It's a very nice place, a beautiful place where people can stay. It's a really beautiful place. You'll be able to benefit many people there. Likewise, I can also prepare a separate summer and winter residence for you. It will be warm in the winter and cool in summer, he promised. So he made a lot of promises. When he made so many promises, then Atisha, he was from abroad, and so he thought, oh, it must be like this. He probably accepted. And after he accepted that, then Atisha went off towards Kutun's to Yarlung, where Kutun lived. And when he left, Drunpa couldn't go together because Kutun didn't like Zhong Tunpa. And so Zhong Tunpa went down towards Nietang, where Bangtun lived. Atisha went up to Yarlung. And the place where he stayed in Yarlung, it's a large area, and within there's a place called Tangboche. And so that's where Atisha stayed. And while he was there, then Atisha taught the Prajna Paramahansa in 25,000 lines, the Sublime Committee, continuing, and Distinguished Phenomena of the Nature, and many other texts. He also translated many secret texts along with Natsu Losao. For a while, Atisha was staying in there, Kutid, and he said that those people, they need to, they don't do everything. He made to make rules for them. And Atisha wasn't able to do exactly what he wanted. And so Kutun had actually has a few problems, actually really real difficulties. And so actually for a whole week long. And so it's not like it was intentional. But Kutun Yunten was such a person, he didn't have so much to do. So he didn't have time to really take care of it. He basically forgot about it. And so there's a whole week when Atisha didn't get any food. And at that time, Dondrupa was staying in Yetang. I was saying that he was always really worried about this. He was really worried about Atisha. And he always said to Bangtan, we have to do what we can, bring Atisha down to Nietang. It won't work out. Kutun is such an important person. He's too proud, so we won't serve him well. So I'll go up to Yarlung first to see what the situation is. And if it's not good, then I'll do what I can to bring Atisha to Samye. And you can send people to bring him up from Samye. The Trippa made this, they discussed about, they made a plan and they agreed. And then Drontupa went up to Yarlung to fetch Atisha. Now, when Drontupa arrived in Tamboche, the sun was about to set. At first, he looked for a student of Kutun's who knows and asked where he knew he was, where Atisha was staying. But Kutun's students, they didn't like Zhong Tunpa at all. The reason is because they thought he had ignored, he had disrespected Kutun, and so they wouldn't pay any attention to him. They didn't tell him where Atisha stayed. But at that time, what was good is that the student of Atisha's from India who appeared, and he was delighted to see John Dhamma. Immediately, he was just totally delighted to see him, and immediately brought him to Atisha's residence. Now, Atisha had probably not spent more than 1 or 2 months in Tangboche, but it was such great hardships as if he had suffered more hardships for over a year. His flesh was sagging, and he appeared as if he had been through great difficulties. And as soon as Atisha saw John Trumpi, he immediately said, "Oh, great lay person." So I said, "Take me back to where I came from. Take me over there. My retinue, all my servants, they're also having a good time. Our horses are also having difficulty. Horses also are mother sentient beings, right? Khuten has as many supplies as like a universal monarch, as much as a god in the realm of the 33s, and it's as if I've been reduced to a beggar. So I'm no better off than a..." And as he said this, he wept. And then Drondupa said, "If you want to go someplace nice, I have a really good place to tell you about. There's an area of Niatang, and there are many leafy forests, and it's even in winter the flowers will bloom. It's kind of a really nice area because the winter is very cold, and so Niatang it's actually even flowers bloom even in winter." And Atisha immediately was pleased to hear about that. He said, "Oh, great lay person, if that's hot, let's go right away." John Tapa said it wouldn't work to do that. That won't work at all. Khuten is a really important person. He's got a lot of power. So if we immediately leave, it won't work out. So I need to look for a way for us to explain, but you don't need to worry. I've got a way to handle him. So we don't, but Atisha said, "We don't need to go right away, right?" But Atisha said, "I have to wait. We have to keep it for now. So let's go right now." So they packed that night, and they left. And they left even before dawn. Now when they'd fled, one of Khuten's students saw them fleeing. And immediately they saw them fleeing, then he immediately went to go inform Khuten. Now there was some distance between Atisha's residence and Khuten's residence, but normally when you go there, it doesn't take that long to go from one to the other. But on that day, no matter how fast he went, he just never was able to come. He just never made it there. It took a really, really long time. And then eventually, when he got to Khuten's residence, now normally Khuten would be in the morning, would be outside walking. He would go for a walk in the mornings. But on that day, he said there's some work, and he closed his doors, and closed them tight. And the student of Khuten's got very anxious, and he knocked on Khuten's door and said, "What are you doing in there with your door closed? Drondupa has taken Atisha. He's kidnapped Atisha." And when he said this, as soon as Khuten heard this, he was amazed, and he ran outside, and he started to prepare his horses' men to go and follow Atisha. Khuten was an important person, so he had really good horses. And that horse is named Tangna. And normally, whenever he called the horse, and he'd say Tangna, and the horse would immediately come right to him. But on that day, no matter how much Khuten called the horse, Tangna ran from this side, that side, and no one was able to catch him. In the very end, many people collaborated and worked hard, and they just barely managed to catch Tangna. So then Khuten got on Tangna, and they all set off after Atisha. Now Atisha and his party, they had all floated. So when they got by the area of Kishu. So that's at sunrise when they got there. And so you probably had to cross that by boats. And at that time, all the boats were small, leather boats. There were only these small boats. And not many people would fit in them. So Drondupa said, because not everyone would fit all at once, then Drondupa said to Atisha, "Normally the cartoon goes and the student goes later, but today, otherwise, I said, please let me go. Otherwise, if Khuten comes, if he comes following me, he's gonna catch me and beat me. And Atisha said, it's okay. And so Jontupa got in the boat and he crossed the river first. And Atisha waited. So Atisha waited while they crossed. And so the boat crossed, and then as it came back, it came to get Atisha, and at that point, Atisha, basically as soon as Atisha got it, then from Longway, they saw the Kutun's horse guard came from Barn, they're kicking up a lot of dust. And Tanglat was a really good head. That Kutun's name. He had a good horse, Tanglat, so he came first. He was crying, making a lot of noise. He said, did you leave without telling any of your students? Have you forgotten about it? He said, he yelled. And so what Atisha said was, you forgot me, didn't you? You agreed to Ben Scholar, now you go away. You go back. But this is because they're coming on board. When they got to the riverbank, the horse going to hit him. When it got to the river, then the car wouldn't go any further. Immediately stopped, and Kutun fell into the river and was almost swept away by the current. But he was lucky that his students came behind him and were able to rescue him. But continued to insist, saying, Atisha, you're terrible Indians. You're listening to me. You're trying to work things out. Why are you going? And so Atisha then said, oh, great scholar, please don't speak like this. In any case, at the end, there's nothing that is spoken this way, but in the end, there's nothing Kutun could do. He said, in that case, please give us something we can worship. And so Atisha took his hat off his head, and he threw it across the water. And he threw it across, and Kutun then took the hat and asked his servants to help him get back to the bank. And then they left. And so after this, then Atisha went to Samye. And then only then was he happy. He had a time to stay in it nice and relaxed. And for one thing, is that he really liked Samye. It was because in Samye there were a lot of Sanskrit manuscripts, in particular the many tantras of the secret mantra, which he all read. And when he read them, what he thought is, previously I had thought that I had read all the tantras, but no, it's not like that at all. The tantras are as vast as an ocean. There have been 3 fires in Indian monasteries, and so many scriptures were lost in those fires. But those that were lost can still be found here. And so he would stay there reading many of these Sanskrit scriptures in there, and sometimes he would circumambulate the temple. Likewise, he also he gathered many students and summoned them and had them copy the Sanskrit manuscripts and sent them back to India. So originally, Atisha himself wanted to spend a little bit longer time in Samye, but the leader of the area was the Mak King Bodhiraja. It's probably the so he was like the most important king in Tibet. He's like the king of Tibet at that time. But some of the people in his retinue got a little bit jealous of Atisha. And for that reason, Atisha was not able to spend that long a time in Samye. And then Bangchen, the leader of Nye Tang, sent a horse guard of over 200 riders to escort Atisha to Nye Tang. And so on the way to Nye Tang, they went through Lhasa. And at that time, there was one of Atisha's 3 important students. This is Ngotlek Peshera. So Jontupa, Kutun, and Ngotlek Peshera. And so Atisha at that time gave him and many others many empowerments and transmissions of the secret mantra. And at the same time, they translated many secret mantra texts, including a Tara Sadhana. In particular, at the so they translated the commentary on the essence of the middle way, blazing logic. And then Atisha went to Nye Tang. And most of the last part of his life he spent in Nye Tang. And while he was in Nye Tang, he translated along with Ngatso the translator many sutra and tantric texts. Now, Atisha had many plans for spreading Buddhism in Tibet, but many of them didn't turn out as he had hoped. Now, for one thing, is that Atisha thought that the Sarvastivada school, there was a little bit more relaxed about the offense of drinking alcohol because it was not considered a root vow. But probably in the Mahasanghas, it was considered a root vow. So for that reason, Atisha thought it would be good to institute the Mahasangha of transmission of vows. And he began to work on this project, but Dromtumpa stopped him from doing this. And the reason why Dromtumpa stopped him is that the Tibetan emperors had decreed that one may not give any vows other than Sarvastivada tradition. And secondly, that in India, there are so many disputes within the schools in India. And so it is possible that if there were the Mahasangha school and many other schools, then within Tibet, there would also be a similar situation in Tibet that would cause a lot of conflict in Tibet. Likewise, Atisha also wanted to spread many teachings of the Tantras and Pith instructions, but Dromtumpa also prevented from doing that. And so many of his plans were blocked by Dromtumpa. And Dromtumpa said, you can't do that. Vows aren't good doing this teaching. That is not good. And so Atisha was kind of disappointed and said, if that's what it is, what was my point of coming to Tibet? I can't spread my lineage vows. I can't teach the secret mantra. What was the point of me coming? As it says in one story. Now, at that time, for the time, it's probably for that situation at that time. If you look at it, it was probably a good thing. But if you think about it in terms of a long term, it's probably actually a bit of a problem. And for that reason, many people they said it's actually disappointing that he did not that it didn't take it. For example, Milarepa, who was essentially a contemporary of Dromtumpa, said to Gampopa, some ghost has wormed its way into the Tibetans' hearts, and they won't allow Atisha to Tibet the Tantras. And so for this reason, even though the Kadampas do have some Vajrayana teachings, they don't have the Pith instructions. And so this is a criticism that's recorded in Gampopa's biography. Now, Atisha reached Netang, and then after he reached the age of 70, when he came to the last years of life, he didn't teach much Dharma. He would occasionally sing a song, and later these songs were translated into Tibetan. When he had some time, he would go outside his residence and he'd view the Tibetan mountains, rivers, flowers, and grasses of Tibet. And in particular, he was delighted by how clean and pure the Tibetan water was, and he really enjoyed that. And he praised it, saying that one can gather merit by just offering water. That'd be fine. In India, the climate is so hot. There aren't so many springs that are nice and cool as in Tibet. So for that reason, Atisha would make offerings of water. So now in our modern tradition, we have the tradition of offering water bowls every day. This is said to have originated from Lord Atisha. Likewise, when Atisha saw poor animals, he would ask them, oh, little goat, little kid, how are you doing? Little horse, how are you doing? He'd say gratitude. In particular, he really loved puppies. And whenever he saw a puppy, he'd just immediately pick it up. And he said, oh, little puppy, how are you doing? So you made a mistake to take a body like this puppy. But he'd treat them really lovingly. Now, when Atisha was about to pass into nirvana, he summoned his close disciples, and he gathered to give each of them particular advice. He gave each of them advice. And he has told all of his students, in the future, when I am not here, you should follow Dromtumpa as your Lama. And when he said that, then Dromtumpa then said, if you're not here, who should I follow? Chodita said in reply, when I'm gone, you should make the scriptures your teacher. The scriptures will be your teacher. Likewise, until you've achieved clairvoyance, you shouldn't do much to benefit beings. But otherwise, you should do everything you can to spread the teachings. Whether or not the teachings flourish depends upon the Sangha. And when the Sangha flourishes, that depends on there being disciplined bhikshus. So in the future, you must nurture many disciplined bhikshus. So for that reason, later, there are many monastic spiritual friends who appeared. Now, some disciples asked Atisha what to do about his remains. If he go pass away, what should we do with your remains, they asked. And Atisha replied, it'd be best to do as they said, as was done with the Buddha's relic remains, as described in the Sutra of Mahaparinirvana. In any case, then at the age of 73, in the horse year, in 1054, Atisha passed away, and his remains were cremated at Nyetang. Now, after the cremation, they had made all the remains were there, and everyone. And after the cremation, everyone was having lunch, and then Kutan came with a metal box for Atisha's ashes. He said, if I don't take any now, then Tendeb's going to take them all later, and I won't even get even a little bit. And he took a whole bag full of ashes. Now later, he used these ashes. What Kutan did is he took all of those ashes, he made a lot of tsatsas, and he sent them off to many different locations. And because of this kindness of Kutan's, that Atisha's relics were able to spread throughout Tibet. And so this happened because of Kutan's kindness. So next, I'd like to speak about the influence of Atisha. How Atisha was so kind to Tibet and the influence that he had. So I'd like to speak about that. Now, because Atisha was a Mahasanga monk, but he was not able to establish the lineage of the transmission of the Mahasangika school, but he really emphasized the teachings of the Vinaya when I was in Tibet. And this is when the main traditions of the Tibetan schools developed at that time. Likewise, Atisha we saw that many people said they were geshes or non-practitioners had great realization. You didn't really understand refuge. But in order to become a Buddhist, you first have to have authentic refuge. And so he taught them authentic refuge. And so for that reason, so even if we're only reciting only 4 lines of text at the beginning, we recite Atisha. And so this is probably also an influence of Atisha. Also at that time when Atisha went to Tibet, there are many people who said they had the view of emptiness and dzogchen, but they disregarded conduct. And so Atisha said, no matter how high your view is, you still must pay attention to karmic cause and effect. And so he emphasized that all Dharma practitioners need to refrain from karmic cause and effect. And so he taught this to everyone, whether monastic or lay. And so for everyone to pay attention to karmic cause and effect is another influence of Atisha. Likewise, in Mahayana, one must emphasize loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And so Atisha taught that when people woke up in the morning, they make dedications for the sake of sentient beings. And this is, again, primarily because of Atisha's emphasis on loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta when he taught so many Dharma teachings. Likewise, while Tibet was in Tibet, at that time there were 2 different types of rituals, the ones of the tradition of Nagarjuna and the ones of Asanga, the tradition of the lineage of vast conduct, the lineage of the profound view. And so first, a teacher would teach those of the profound, emphasize the one of the lineage of profound view. Now, in Protestants, primarily there's what became called the consequential middle way figure, and that spread widely primarily because of Atisha's influence, I believe, because Atisha had praised Chandrakirti so highly. And he said that this consequentialist view was superior, and because he said this so much, so the great high regard for the consequentialist view also came from influence. Now, he also emphasized the teachings on the Vajraparamita, and he was also the first person to teach Maitreya Sublime Continuum in Tibet. In terms of the sutra teachings, when we recite the practice, we have what are called sutra rituals, right? Within the sutra rituals, the most important one is the medicine Buddha ritual. And when you think about the medicine Buddha ritual, there is one from the early tradition, the one that came from Shantarakshita, and the second is the one that came from the later transmission that came from the time of Atisha. And so for the he also had a great influence on the medicine Buddha rituals. And also the ritual of the prostrations to the 16 elders also started at that time, 16 arhats, because there's a great connection between him and the Kadampa tradition. And likewise, many of the teachings on Tara also appeared because of the kindness of Atisha. Now, the greatest influence Atisha had in Tibet was the spread of the Kadampa teachings. Now, the Kadampa tradition being established only was able to exist as an independent lineage for a few centuries, but the Kadampa teachers were had a great emphasis on practice, and their discipline was pure, and so they're a great example for everyone. Everyone liked seeing them, and so the Kadampa tradition had one particular feature, which is that the Kadampa teachers would meditate on loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta on their entire life. They'd meditate on revulsion and the wish for libertation. They'd meditate on, and so they would, for every single point of the Dharma, they would emphasize each different point of this for their entire lifetime of practice. And so the Kadampa teachers becomes the same one that everyone felt faith for and everyone really delighted in. Likewise, they founded them and established the monastic colleges. And so this is like the source of all the different texts. Also, Kundin made the Nartang monastery. Nartang, the Sumpo and Nartak were basically the first Shedras in the most important Shedras in the later transition period. In particular, Sumpo was at the time was like the most well-known at the time. If you think about it in terms of the Dapo Kagyu tradition, we talk about the Dapo Kagyu tradition. As if you think about it from one perspective, we are holders of the Kadampa lineage. As it is in the Bhutan's history of the Dharma, it says that Pamodrup and Gampopa wrote many treatises on the stages of the path. In fact, the place where Gampopa went first and where he studied first were all Kadampas. And when we read his writings, he said the Naropa's teachings are very profound, but if you're unable to combine them with the teachings of the Kadampa, then you're unable to benefit sentient beings. And so for this reason, he also considered the teachings of the Kadampa to be extremely important. Likewise, Thigten Sumgwan, when he's transmitting his view of the view and the conduct, he also transmitted both from those from the Atisha. And he talked about when you took the vows, you had to read each of the three vows 3 times. And he taught that the karmic cause and effect were the most important, and they really emphasized conduct. And so these many particular features of the Kadampa were also became features of the Jikung lineage. Likewise, there was Gampopa's student, Gopala Halayapa, and the person who's emphasized it was Hoyakpa. And so when the source for these four is actually the source on the three teaches, because the four dharmas teach the teachings of three types of individuals, so they come from Atishas. Likewise, when we talk about the yogas of Mahamudra, and in particular among that is the co-emergent yoga, one of its origins is the Kadampa tradition. When we talk about the four yogas, when we're talking about the stages of the channels and paths and so forth, and this is also instructions that came from Atisha. And so for that reason, in brief, Gampopa and his disciples took the basis of the stages of path taught by the Kadampa and then added to that the instructions on the path of means, such as Tumo and so forth. And in this way, it became the confluence of the two rivers, the Kadampa and the Mahamudra. Later, even Lord Tsongkhapa, when his main subject was he said his great text on the stages of path, he said that this is Atisha's instructions. And he said for the secret mantra, there's no better source than that, the teachings of Manapan. So the Gelugpa tradition is also a Kadampa tradition. Another Examtindus actually has is tradition with many other features as well. And so that is how it is, right? And so for that reason, the people who practice the confluence of the Mahamudra and Kadampa are actually both. In terms of the practice, they're actually very close. The Kadampa, the Gelugpa and the Kaju. And there was a student of Lord Tsongkhapa's, and there's a short text that he wrote, and what it says in there is that it basically says that Lord Tsongkhapa was basically a Dapo Kaju master. And that's what it says, right? That he was a Dapo Kaju master. And in particular, with the Gelugpas, they became known as the New Kadampa school, right? That's being very well. Because if you think about the Sakyapa schools, Atisha had visited one of the Sakyapa monasteries, and one of the five Sakya forefathers was a student of Atisha's. And so many of the Kadampa traditions explanation also are passed down into the Sakya tradition. So in brief, all of whatever Tibetan lineage it is, the Sakya, Gelug, Nyingma, or Kagyu, it's impossible to practice for them to become what they are without the influence of the Atisha. So to think about it, there's no separate Kadampa lineage anymore, but there's none that is no lineage that it's not pervaded by the Kadampa teachers. It's like there's no part of Tibet that their instructions haven't permeated. But basically, in Tibet, we have the teachings of Sutra and Tantra, and when we talk about the Sutra teachings on the dialectics and on the meditation, and these all come from the Kadampa tradition. And so, for this way, Atisha had a strong influence and was very kind, bestowed a great kindness on the Tibetan tradition. And this is something that we have to remember and that we need to appreciate.